Welcome everybody for coming. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking the time to take this walkthrough with the tasking manager. And so with us here from Thinkware, the people who are actually writing the code are Ian Feeney, Ian Hunter, and Linda Alblas. I think Ian Feeney is going to lead the demo, but we're going to basically walk through all the screens in the Tasking Manager 3 and ask questions about them and give feedback and that sort of stuff, but get a look at exactly what we're talking about with Tasking Manager 3. I mentioned earlier that we're limited to an hour in this particular meeting, but the URL for this is either in the show notes or it's in the text chat right now, and I can paste it in again. So you can follow along. Feel free to open it up and go through the same screens and the same process that Ian goes through. If it's something that you want to look at later and we don't have a chance to comment on it in this hour, you'll have a recording of this. You'll have access to exactly what Ian's demoing. You can look at it in more detail and figure out if it really didn't work or you didn't understand it or something along those lines, and then give us feedback later. So I'll just put that URL in again. No idea where that shows up. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the folks at Thinkware. And feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question anywhere along the way, which I think I'll be doing as well. Okay, great. So I'm going to mute myself and turn off my video and watch the presentation and probably interject.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Good. And Blake, are you seeing the Tasking Manager screen?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, I have it as well.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Hearing you loud and clear, and got the screen as well.
Okay, good stuff. That's great. I'll just crack on then. Okay, so here to introduce and walk through Tasking Manager 3 as it currently stands. We've reached a milestone of, technically speaking, we're calling this a sort of beta release, but yeah, it's very much still a work in progress. There's little bits and pieces that still need to sort of see full implementation and functionality, but yeah, you'll very much be able to get a feel for where things are going to end up today. So I'll just start off at a very extremely high level, just mention the architecture of what we've developed. And when I say high level, I really mean high level. Basically what we've got at we've got a server application written in Python and Flask, and we've got a front-end Angular application for the client. And the main point to kind of highlight about the architecture is that because of the use of Flask at the server, we've got this very clean separation between the front end and the back end. We've got very clean REST APIs that talk in JSON basically with the REST protocols. So that's one thing to sort of just highlight on the architecture point of view. But we're going to focus on the application, the client application, and how it looks today. So you can see before you just now the Tasking Manager. So this is the landing page. And so just at this point, just quickly going through the structure of the application, just
Ian,
to give...
Excuse me, Ian, can you log out and just go through the login process?
Yep, okay. I'll just log out. And so login is going to be the same as before. So I'm currently logged in at OpenStreetMap. And when I hit grant access, I jump back to Tasking Manager. So I'm now logged in again.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's super familiar to us. Thanks.
So that's modeled exactly the same. So yeah, basically basic orientation of the site. We've got the landing page, which is where we are just now. So this is the page that the user will see when they land here. This is the basic URL to the page. It's about the Tasking Manager, what it's about. We've got field stories here. Why contributions are needed and wanted. This is a static page. In the future, because of again highlighting this sort of API business that we have, you know, you can be beginning to build dynamic content in here, pulling data out of the database to actually build dynamic content on this page. But currently it's static, and as you can see, it's still lorem ipsum. So that's the landing page. Then we've got the sort of structure of the site. We've got the about page, so a bit more detail. It sort of replicates the TM2 about page, and it's basically more background information on the tasking manager and links to sponsors. Then we've got the learn page, which is going to be the place to hold materials for learning for mappers to sort of learn about mapping, about the tasking manager, and also about mapping in the various editors that we integrate with. Then we've got the contribute page. Now, we will come back to this page, so let's not discuss it right now. We'll come back to this, but this is just a high-level orientation just now. This is the contribute page. This is where you go to find stuff to work on. So as a mapper, I go here to find projects to work on. Then we've got your kind of user sort of context drop-down menu where you go to find, and this is similar to TM2, this is where you go to, this is one access point for things like creating new projects, project dashboard, which is new and we'll come back to, managing license, user profiles, log out, and your own profile. So we'll come back to these elements later, but that's a very high level sort of site orientation. So for this demo, what I basically want to do is go through a few steps. The first few kind of journeys, as it were. The first one being creating a project.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second, Ian?
Sure.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, I was just going to comment that whatever you see on your profile would depend on your privileges. So my profile just says your profile and log out. I don't have access to some of the menu items, and that would again depend on what privileges you have with the organization.
Yeah, so what you see, I'm an administrator, so I'm seeing everything basically, but yeah, we have roles similar to the same kind of role model that you have currently in TM2. So yeah, absolutely, project manager will be able to see project dashboard and such like. So yeah, very much role-based context there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm thinking in terms of new mappers who are coming into this for the first time. And when they click on contribute, could we make the default screen the list view so that they don't have to have all that knowledge to find a task suitable to themselves until they get into it a little bit more?
Yeah, I have to agree with Ralph on that. I think that the interface is a little busy for a newbie.
Okay, yeah. we'll note that feedback.
Which interface, Laura?
Contribute. So the very first thing you see under contribute is filter and mapping difficulty, and then there's some tabs there, all beginner. I think that I would find that a bit confusing as someone new. The old interface worked actually pretty well, in my opinion, in that you were immediately directed towards a project and you could just jump in right away. That said, that doesn't mean that some of those tabs there are the information beginner, intermediate, advanced would be very useful to add on to the current way that it's rendered. Is that what you mean, Ralph?
Yes, you've got that spot on. So if something a little bit more like the old list view, where mappers could immediately see and choose a project without needing all of the filter stuff, would be useful in the beginning.
Yeah, you could do a count up as to how many times somebody logs in, 10, 15, 20 times, and then gently switch them over if it's that big of an issue. If other people are really wedded to this particular design. The best way to figure this out is through some testing with novel users, obviously.
No, I mean, I hear everything you're saying. I absolutely hear everything you're saying, and it all makes good sense. Yeah, so the only comment that I'll make is you know, so we decided that we were going to try, so when a user logged in and they were a beginner or they were intermediate or advanced or they had the validator role, you know, we had this discussion where we said it would be good if we could show them projects that are right for them. You know, like if there's advanced level projects and you're an advanced mapper and you log in, it would be good if you saw these are the projects that need somebody with your skills. You know, could you spend your time on these because other people can't fill these in? So on the high end, it's good, and on the low end, you know, so beginners are basically only seeing projects that are right for beginners.
Okay, I see that. I get where you're coming from.
But I get where you're coming from too, Laura. Is that simplifying this interface doesn't impact that at all.
Yeah, what if someone doesn't identify as beginner, intermediate, or advanced? I personally don't even know what I would identify as. So I would search through projects based on my skill set. So I know I'm really good at certain things, like buildings and some types of roads, depending on what where it is. And so that's how I would search for a task. Not that that's not available in this option, but I'm just saying that as an absolute newbie, if I saw this, I would just automatically click on beginner. But if I'm an experienced OSM mapper, I might be actually intermediate or advanced.
Yeah, that's a related and also somewhat separate issue of how we make these judgments. But everybody will be a beginner, intermediate, or advanced. And at the moment, it's based on change set. So how many change sets you have sort of indicate whether you're beginner, intermediate, or advanced.
Is this your change sets within OSM or your change sets within HOT?
Within OSM.
Okay. So that to me just is, well, we're getting off.
Yes, we are, but that's true. But it's also important to have those discussions. Did you have quick feedback on that, Laura?
Yeah, and that's all I wanted to say was that I'm.
But I mean, on the levels based on change set, did you just have quick feedback on that?
Oh, because, you know, I live in downtown Toronto, so my mapping in downtown Toronto and OSM is very, very different from any of my HOT mapping. They're like night and day. Okay. So I had to start from scratch basically when I was mapping with HOT because it's obviously much different urban to, So we also kind of are in the process of trying to address that issue in that we will keep track of how long you've been using the tasking manager, right? Maybe one way to, I'm not sure because I haven't clicked on all the buttons here, but maybe one way to help the person who lands on this page is to identify whether they need to choose all of these options or just one, like if you number them, if you click on beginner, then choose organization, then choose campaign.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to revisit this page.
Okay.
And simplify. Let's just put a pin in that one.
Okay. Go.
We need to make this a little better. And then the other things. Yeah. So I'm sorry, Ian. If you want to, Ian, can you show me the pop down on organization and campaign, the pop down menus, please? And how do new ones get in there, Ian? Ian, you might be on mute.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Linda, but I believe those just build up. There's no specific interface to add new ones. It's as you create projects, you
project creation.
Yeah, project creation. So as you create
project creation. Okay. Yeah, that's right. I remember it now. So this is something that you should look out for in project creation. You're going to see where like organization and campaign and that kind of stuff get defined. Yeah, that's right. I was thinking it was here and then I didn't see it, but that's because it's on project creation. Okay.
Yes, here. So on the tags, they basically, if they don't exist, they'll be created. But as you know, when you're adding a tag, it will search to make sure that the tag is already there. So you can type, and it should insert the tag, but if the tag is a new tag, then it will just be kind of inserted into the database.
Right. I thought that was here, but it's not. It's in project creation.
Yeah. Okay, so let me just try and sort of jump back in again because we will come on to that stuff when we see the editing project. So we're going to come back to everything we've looked at. So hopefully you'll be able to get more context around some of these things we've been talking about. So we're going to cover some user journeys, creating projects, editing projects, finding stuff to contribute to, then actually in the mapping and validation, contributing to a project. Then finally, we'll kind of look at the dashboards that are new for TM3, the sort of different dashboards, user profile, project dashboard, and a stats and activity dashboard. If we have time, and I'm not sure that people here will be interested, but if we have time, we may get a very quick look at the API at the back end, the API that's actually supporting the data requests that are being used by the front end. Okay, so that's the high level. So let's get into it. Creating a project. So I'm a project manager. I'm logged in. I can go here to create a project, and a lot of this is very familiar from TM3. The workflow, the wizard is basically the same. So we can draw or we can import. We're currently still working on import. So what we'll be demonstrating today is draw. So we can zoom in, find an area. This will all be very familiar, so I'm going to go through it quickly. Can create a project so here we are. I'm going to do it, and again, we're working on arbitrary tasks. So Square, just gridding your area of interest is what we'll demonstrate today. So creating our grid. We're a hair's breadth away from having the grid actually clipped exactly to the AOI. We were quite close to actually releasing that, sort of merging that for the demo today, but we didn't. But yeah, just to let you know that that's on its way as an important feature of TM3. So we've created our grid, and we go into the next, and this is where things start to get a little bit different. It's similar in the fact that we can make the grid smaller and larger, but what's sort of new now is that we actually start to reach thresholds whereby the application is starting to tell us we may have reached the maximum number of tasks. So we're sort of just guiding the user. We're not stopping them creating this project, but we're just sort of advising the user that perhaps they want to think about splitting things up a bit. So we'll go a little bit larger again. And again, what we can do here is we can actually split individual areas of the...
Ian, can I interrupt, please? Change the background, right? This is another, seems simple, but pretty significant. Can you switch it to the Bing, or not the Bing, but the map?
Yeah, good point, Blake. Yeah.
So now, I would larger these a couple of times, and I would zoom in a little bit, and then sort of show exactly. No, you're fine. I would just do.
Would it be better with a different area?
No, this is just perfect. Just say, okay. Just say next, square grid. Next. Okay. And now that you have, just zoom in a little bit. And now this is the big advantage, is that we get to start splitting these things while we can see aerial imagery behind it.
So we can split an individual task. We can we can split by polygon. So let's say we're seeing that's a town there. So we're actually going to want to get a bit more in depth there. So we can split these, and let's say we know that's a very dense area. So we can split those, maybe include this one as well. And then sort of maybe just the odd task here or there, kind of satellite areas. So we can do that, and we can reset as well. So take my word that will just reset back to the original grid. So that's new. Then, so we've defined our area, our tasks as we require them. And we go into the next piece, which is, did anybody notice which part of the world I'm even in here? I didn't even notice. Some part of the world. So we'll create that. And again, familiar to people familiar with TM2, we've jumped into so we've now got a draft project, and we need to sort of set the various instructions and metadata associated with the task. So I'm just going to go through this very quickly just now and not spend any time. I've got a kind of a project that's a bit more finished that we can switch to when it comes to demonstrating other parts, but for the purpose of this, I'm just going to do a bit of this. So we are in here, and then we can go to instructions. I'm just filling in the compulsory things just now, just to get through here quickly. Now, metadata. This is where we set the things that you were seeing on that contribute page. This is where the project manager sets things up. So the project manager knows that this is going to be a good task for beginner, intermediate, or advanced, and sets up the type of mapping. Now, the type of mapping, the way this is going to work is very much getting worked on over the next couple of weeks before the final release. So I'll not say too much about types of mapping and how it's going to work just now, but it's, suffice to say that these items here will sort of drive kind of pre-canned instructions for the task, for the project. And here is where we complete the tags that we saw. So if I start to type, it auto-completes. It says, gives me some suggestions of things that have already been there. So let's take the Clinton Foundation and then a campaign tag. So let's say it's malaria. Okay, so that's the metadata. We're going to be able to do priority areas. Still working on that.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to.
I'm sorry.
Hello. Yeah.
I was muted. Can you go back to metadata, please?
Yep.
So you can add more than one organization tag?
Only one.
Only
Yeah,
one.
that's right below organization tag. Only one organization tag is allowed.
Oh, I see. Only one is allowed. I see. I thought it. And so can you add a new one there and just show how that works?
Yeah, so I could create my own one. Ian's humanitarian.
Close enough.
Yeah, that's close enough.
So that becomes a new tag. So that's in the database now, and that will show up in places where we use organization tag for searching. Okay, so priority areas, we'll be able to define priority areas. They'll come through on the mapping page. Imagery, we can define the background imagery to be used. That will get passed through to the editors when we integrate with them. We are working on licensing at the moment still, but that will be coming along soon. But yeah, we've got some licensing there. Permissions, this is new. So if you remember, here we specified beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So currently all that is a guide. It's really just to say this project is good for beginners, intermediate, and advanced. If I just leave it at that, anybody can map on those projects. In here, the project manager has the option of enforcing that. So basically saying only mappers with the level. If I change this to intermediate and I go back to permissions, only mappers with intermediate or higher can map. So we can click those to enforce that. And same with validation, we can enforce that only validators are allowed to validate on a project. And we will be able to specify that projects are private as well, and only a list of users will be able to do anything on those projects. Yeah, in here, correct me, Linda or Ian, is this the place where we will be, well, specifying the locale for the project? Is this what more is coming in here? Linda?
Yeah, that's where you set the default locale. So we make sure once you set that language to English, then you need to have both instructions and description, at least one set there, to make sure that there's always something to show to people in one language at least.
Okay.
Yeah, just that also means that if you've, when you're searching for projects, if if it's only got a partial description, so I've seen in the database that some people put in a title in Spanish, but maybe not everything else. then this kind of allows us to kind of get back what the instructions in the kind of default locale. So it's just a little bit more intelligence there.
Okay, and then this last page, actions, allows a little bit of functionality for the project manager. Project manager can send a message to all contributors. So that's basically anyone who's done any mapping or validation on the task, on the project, I should say. We can also invalidate all the tasks and validate all the tasks, and we can delete the project. Okay, so that is project creation. Do we have any questions there before we move on?
Nobody has any questions about any of this?
No, I don't use this interface, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's true. I mean, most of us here, I'm probably the main person who does, but.
Okay.
No, I have to say, first of all, that very good. This is all pretty much straightforward and is exactly what is needed to do. So no questions, I think is great. Okay.
So I'll go back and I'll actually make this project published. Also, just to comment that this is the project edit page as well. So, you know, you come in here, if once you've published the project, when project managers want to come back to it and make changes to it, they come back to this page. So that covers project creation and project edit. So we'll save that project and we'll go to the project now. Yeah. So that's the project. So that's a brand new project. We can see. So I'll just say, don't ask any questions on this project because I've got another project to switch to. But just so you can see, you know, the stuff that I put in is here or not here because I didn't put it in. Okay. So let me go to the project that I had prepared earlier. In fact, let me just, rather than using the URL, let me just find the project that I'm looking for. So I happen to know that the project that I'm looking for is an advanced project. Well, actually, I'll show that new tag that I put in, Fini Humanitarian, that's shown up there now. So the project that I'm going to demonstrate is on, actually I don't know what it's on, but I know that it's advanced. So that's it here. So at this level, we're seeing that project, you know, seeing these kind of completion widgets there. So we'll jump into this project. So again, we're seeing, you know, it's very familiar interface to what you have in TM2, description, instructions. But the main difference now in TM3 is that we have separated out validation, explicitly separated mapping and validation. So we're basically asking users to make, you know, it's explicit distinction. So we can step through this, you know, as a wizard point of view. Oh, where's the button going? Yeah, there's the button. So we can step through it. We've read the description, we've read the instructions, and we can go to mapping or validation, or we can just use the tabs. Or I can just click on the map, as you can in TM2. So the map will just react to what I've clicked on. So there's messaging now about, because we've got this separation between mapping and validation, the messaging is very context aware of the current state of the tasks. So this one is saying, this task is available for mapping, so I could start mapping. So that's quite familiar. This one is saying this task is locked, or saying this task, the selected task is not in a state that allows mapping. So at a high level, that's just, you can't map it, you know, you can't go any further. But if you're a more advanced user, you can look into the information on why it's, okay, this one's locked for mapping by somebody. And then we can start to see more about the task. On the map itself, you can see we've got some more, we're being a bit, we've got a map key here that's a bit more explicit about what the different states mean. So we're actually showing on the map, we've got a ready status, we're showing a mapped status. Done is now mapped. We decided to call mapped rather than done. We've got a new status called bad imagery. So this is to allow people a very quick way to just mark, they've gone out to an editor, they found that, the aerial photography is not very good, not good enough for mapping. So they can very quickly mark something as bad imagery. We have validated, we have invalidated. We've also got a bit more information on the map about locked as well. So squares that are locked are blue, but squares that are locked by me, so if I start mapping this, so that's now locked. So it's currently locked and selected by me, but if I click away from that, you see we've got the heavy blue outline here. So that helps to show what's locked by me. So that's going to come in, when you go away and you come back again and you still got something locked, because if I try to start something else, it's telling me you can't do this just now because you've already got something locked. So sort that out before you can continue. So I can see on the map now which one's locked for me by me. So I can go back to that and it takes me back into the state. So that's me marked, that one is done. So that's really it. So just showing you clicking something. So you stop mapping, that just, you just abandon what you're doing. You can leave a comment. Had to go for lunch.
Can you do the @ symbols in there to direct it towards
Not yet. That's that's for the user messaging system, which we are getting that underway in the current sprint actually.
Okay.
So I'll leave a comment. Did some mapping and just stop mapping. Sure. I think it was that one. Okay.
Can I mention something here?
Yeah.
Your comments that come up on my screen are a bit hairy. Is it easier to make them more clarity as an absolute black or something like that, so that they're a bit clearer? My eyesight's good, but people with slightly lesser eyesight are going to see a blur.
Okay. We'll take that. No, I don't know.
I'm sorry, Ralph, I don't understand which comments are difficult to read.
Right below the cursor to the left.
Is it these things here or these ones?
The comments, I think he means.
I think both of those are a bit difficult to read. The white on the black that comes up on my screen is quite blurry, but I can read it. But they both seem to be a bit blurry rather than nice and crisp. The wording "select another task," that's quite clear and can be read easily.
So is this on your own PC or is this via the screen share?
This is on the screen share. I don't know on my own PC. Let's just see.
Ralph, I think we can follow up on it. I think
right.
I know exactly what we're talking about. We just have to figure out why it looks like that. Because I agree it's a bit small for sure, but it's pretty crisp and clear on my screen. So I'll follow up on that, Ralph. Thanks.
Okay. Right, so that's mapping. So any comments there?
Just one comment. I think it was discussed before about pink or red being a rather harsh color for someone whose square has been invalidated.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have been discussed that we might swap the gray and the pink around. So bad imagery would be the pink and invalidated would be the gray. Do you recall that conversation, Blake?
I do. And I think that's probably pretty easy to do. And I'll make sure that we capture that too, Ralph. I do remember our conversation. Yeah.
Okay, right.
Okay.
I have a question. So when you click on a currently locked tile, there is no information about who locked this tile. unless you click on the advanced block, is it possible to show the history locked for mapping by someone maybe 3 minutes ago?
That's you, Pierre?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is something we'll think about. You know, because they've made a conscious decision that sort of like the comments on the contribute page where the UI was a little confusing, you know, for new mappers. We made kind of a conscious decision that, you know, the vast majority of people who care about exactly the person, the username that has a task locked is probably a lot less than the vast majority of users. So we put some of this, we put like some extra detail in, but also put it under this advanced turndown so that new users, they're going to get to see the history and the comments, and then that's it. They're not distracted. It's, you know, that was a conscious decision to reduce clutter on the UI for the exact same reasons that we need to maybe reduce a little clutter on that main page.
Okay, I understand, but when you click on a done task, then you get the history and you get the log, the comment, and the marked as ready or something. So this is different when you have a task which is locked, just locked, or if it's finished. Can you click on the tile which is yellow, for example?
Yeah. I think I know what you're saying. Yeah.
So you got a history in this one.
Yeah,
but if
and
you
you
click on
can see
one,
you can see that you see they're locked for validation, and you can see that it was locked for a period of time.
And what's the other one look like?
This one, so in the history, so let me just show something. If I start mapping, and then if I mark, well, if I just stop mapping now, if I go there, we've got some history now on this one. So, and then, sorry, if I lock it again and now click on it.
Yeah, it could be because some of these tiles are colored based on testing data.
Well, I think what he's saying is that it's current. So this task here is currently locked by another person, but this here is not saying who's locked it.
Yes, but I think that's because it's only colored blue.
Yeah.
Because we jam test data in.
Yeah.
So that there would almost be in real life no condition where there wasn't a history for why this was blue. I think that's the issue. But I totally get it, and I'll make sure we follow up on it too.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I think this is an artifact of test data, honestly.
Well, no, I'm not sure. I think what this is I only just think a second because I just want to make sure I'm hearing the issue correctly.
Okay, maybe I'll open an issue with details of what I'm thinking, and we'll follow up.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do that, and I'll think about it. But I think I know what you're saying, Pierre. And yeah, there is something there behind that. It's not to do with test data. There is a reason. It's because the task hasn't been unlocked yet. So we complete the lock, and when it's kind of technical, but yeah, we can look at what you're saying, and we can see whether there's an issue there or what. But yeah, okay. So mapping. Just a couple more.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Are the tiles automatically unlocked after maybe 2 hours or something?
Yeah, that will be. Currently not, but they will be. That will be implemented.
Okay, so it's not the case currently.
Not currently, no, but that is very much on the sort of
nice.
of items to do.
Will there be any notification to the person mapping that their tile is being unlocked?
With that, I don't know, what does it do at the moment? So could do, or could just unlock. I mean, I guess, Blake, that's your call.
Yeah, so at the moment, you don't get any kind of a notification that your task is unlocked, that has become unlocked. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, like in real life, a lot of projects are not going to have 2-hour time limit. You know, it's going to take more than 2 hours to do a task square. That's not a good task square if it takes more than 2 hours in 90% of the cases. But what happens is people just forget to log out, forget to check back in their task square, and then we have to expire it. Otherwise, everything turns blue, basically. And so right now, it just unlocks it. And I mean, in the past, we've had times where people are mapping for more than 2 hours. I think we've recognized that that is not a best practice for square size. So I think it'll be mitigated a little bit by that. And, you know, I mean, we could do whatever is, you know, when it gets unlocked, we can send them a message, probably to their messaging system, but there's no way for us to easily communicate with the editor. But I know the issue you're talking about, so I'll see what we can do that would make it a little bit more than it is now, but it's not going to be a dream world.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Any more questions on that, or anything else before we move on? Okay.
I didn't sort of demonstrate the editors, but you know, suffice to say that that's going to work as it does just now. You know, just quickly demonstrating that we're sort of jumping out there into our editor to do our mapping. So that's very much as it is just now. So then, if we're happy with seeing mapping, I'll move on to validation. So validation it's the same as mapping in that you're clicking on squares, and the UI is telling you whether you can validate the square or not. That's going to be based on the state of the task, but also on the role and whether on your role and whether the project manager has enforced role restrictions. So you're basically going to see, you know, currently this task is mapped, so it's ready for validation. This task is locked, it's not ready for validation. This task is bad imagery, it's not ready for validation. And again, anyone who's interested in sort of knowing why it's not ready for validation can sort of go down and see a bit more on what's going on, or use the history to see what's going on. So if I just cancel this just now, you've got this this UI here. So this is a sort of UI for selecting something for validation. You can just be clicking on the map. If you know the keys on the map, you can just be clicking on stuff to find it and start validation and what have you. But you can also use this UI here. And what's new is this multiple validation. So implementing the idea that we especially want to find things that new people have been working on and target those. New people have been working on recently and target those. Now, I'm sure we might well end up having some discussion about exactly what goes on to this table. And certainly Blake has been giving his feedback there, and this table is going to be getting some more work to show some different information. But the core principle is this table lets you find multiple tasks grouped by a user and basically validate all of those things at once. So let me just pick Linda, who's been busy doing some validation. Actually, I'm going to pick our tester here at Think Where's Latter, because those squares are non-contiguous. So I can select that group of tasks for validation. So I've currently got all of those tasks locked for validation. Now, we're aware that most validators will be using Jobsam, but let's say we have a validator who wants to use ID Editor. We can start the ID Editor, and we go out to ID Editor, and we're seeing the task squares there. So we can basically just stay here, visit these task squares, and check out the mapping. And then when we're done, we can come back and we can mark all as valid. And those have gone now, the map updated. And so, yeah, that's that's new, and that's one of the things that should bring some efficiencies from a validation point of view, not only in terms of like doing bulk validations, but also in terms of targeting validations to be done. Currently, the only way of doing multiple validation is by this interface here, but we will be allowing contiguous, selecting squares on the map for validation regardless of user. That's a bit more involved because, it needs to be aware of, obviously that's free form, you can click anywhere. The UI needs to kind of react to, if one of the tasks that you've clicked on can't be validated, that's obviously a bit more complicated and needs to be handled. So that's going to be worked on. Currently, that's what's happening there.
We can catch up on that one later too. I wouldn't, like if a person is validating 10 or 12 squares, contiguously, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ralph or Laura. If I'm going to validate like the upper 6 squares there in what's my upper right-hand corner, if I wanted to select, So the only one that you really have to worry about, I see. The one status that you have to worry about is the checked out status, which is blue. So any other status, whether it's mapped or validated or bad imagery, so it can't be currently being mapped. But the rest of those, if I was going to validate, if I select the task square, it's because I want to see the data, regardless of its status, with the sole exception of somebody's working on this one. Anyhow, that's my feedback on how I would, what I would worry about. I would just worry about if somebody's working on it. Otherwise, the validator says they want to see these, so let's show them these regardless of other status.
Okay. All right. Okay. And like I mentioned briefly, we're aware that Jobsam is probably the primary sort of editor. So we can currently do it. This is currently it's GPX file. You may not want me to show this, but it's currently by GPX file, but the workflow is, well, the workflow is not going to be the same, but currently it's just to show that we're going to be able to do this in Jobsam as well. We can download that, and if I just... Yeah,
you don't have to go all the way through it. At the moment, so you saw how you got the task squares in the ID editor automatically. At the moment, it doesn't work like that in Jobsam. At the moment, it's a separate GPX file that you download and then load into Jobsam and then do your validation. And that's less than ideal, but it's probably still enough of a win to be able to check out multiple task squares at once based on user, that the manual walkthrough step, it probably still is going to save you a dramatic amount of time and make validation better, even though at the moment it's outside of the tasking manager load the GPX file process.
But we know how to do it. We've been talking to the Jobsam developers in terms of how you can have that manual step, omitted. So, and we're planning to sort of implement that.
Yeah, Pierre, so the issue is, like I said, Pierre's hyper technical. The issue is we just have to figure out how to generate the OSM XML that indicates the bounding box, or the individual bounding box, not bounding boxes, individual task squares you can supply via OSM XML. We know how to do it via GPX. We just either need to figure out how to translate them, or we need to figure out how to generate that natively. But it's just getting that XML right, and then Jobsam automatically loads them.
You reach out to the Jobsam community and ask them to write a plugin for us?
Well, we can do it. We can do it. We just need to implement it. We've done the, we know exactly how to do it. We just need to wire it up dynamically, and we've done it sort of statically for a kind of pre-canned piece of OS XML, and it's just putting the just implement.
And we did reach out, and we did reach out to the Jobsam community, and we got back some helpful feedback, and we got some less than helpful feedback too.
All righty then.
Yeah,
we got what we needed. We know how to do it.
But we also got some less than helpful feedback. And we can readdress that if you still need answers, but I assume
no, we're good. We're good. We just need to get to it. Okay, so yeah, basically that's validation. So yeah, it's kind of the same but different. Very much similar type of things. So if what I planned now then, if we're kind of happy with mapping and validation, would be to move on and take a look at the dashboards, which is new and will probably generate lots of discussion.
Let's see how your time schedule goes. But let's talk about, if I can get Ralph and Laura to look at this page that we see on our screen right now and look at the list of users and how you can select by user. And these are sortable columns. And right now, it shows this beginner level, which is which is primarily based on change sets, number of task squares mapped, and then what the newest task square was that they have said is completed.
I think it's excellent. Those are all the variables that we were looking for in order to determine the best route to validate. We want to catch newbies right when they've just validated. Because
okay, Laura, there's nothing about, there's beginner level, but that doesn't tell you, to me, I'm missing stuff that helps me determine they're a new mapper. Beginner level is really coarse, that they're a new mapper. That's only change sets, doesn't take into account anything related to hot mapping. And it's hidden, right? It's in one of these 3 buckets. So I don't have any real idea what the number is behind that. And I think that we need to change what's in here. Newest task square completed is also not a metric that helps us identify new or old experienced mappers. That's just the last one. They marked one done 4 minutes ago.
But that is useful in catching someone and giving them immediate feedback. There's value there.
But you still have no idea, if that's their 3rd task or their 100th task.
Okay, well, what
about the last one they clicked on 2 minutes ago?
In the very first column, contributor, underneath that, Ian's name is currently written there. And to me, it looks like it might be hypertext linked.
Yeah.
So what if you were to click on that and somehow we have more information available there with respect to their mapping?
Let me tell you.
And we do.
Laura, let me tell you what my proposed columns are.
Okay.
My proposed columns, can you go back to the columns, Ian? Yeah, my proposed columns are contributor, level, and then the next one I would do is days since they joined the tasking manager, right? So are they a month old, 6 months old, a year old from when they started doing hot projects? So days from when they registered for the tasking manager is the next column. And then the next column, instead of newest, is days since they've last gotten a task square validated.
Yeah, I think that's an important metric.
Yes, that's the key metric.
Yeah.
Days since they've gotten the last task square validated.
Another potential metric is, did they join our Start Hot via a mapathon, or did they join of their own accord?
Okay, yeah, that would be interesting to know. And I think I don't think it's going to come into play here in the next 2 weeks, that's for sure. But I think that informs what we want on the user profile.
Blake.
That's a really good one for informing the user profile.
Ian Hunter here. I can see the kind of rationale for the kind of days since last validated, but I'm not quite as convinced about, on that validation side, days since joining. Is that not something you'd want on the profile perhaps? Because
no, it's here where I need to decide. This is where that information is useful. it's interesting on the user profile, but this is where I need it, is here. How long they've been mapping hot projects, how long it's been since they've last gotten feedback, and their beginner and their level, which is change set based. You know, beginner could be advanced, days on tasking manager could be 2, days since last feedback is also 2. So it's interesting to put it on a user profile, but this is where I need it. So that's why it needs to go here. This is where I can use that data. I don't want to have to go look it up someplace else and what, I'm going to write it down for 3 of them and then come back here and pick. Let's put it where I need it.
Blake,
Yeah.
do you intend to migrate some data from Task Manager 2 to Task Manager 3? Because we don't currently have any information about the login through the Task Manager date.
Yes, I know. That's okay. Everybody who was already in the tasking manager will have the same join date, May 15th, or whatever day we do the thing. That's just the breaks. But it'll still be extremely valuable information going forward to be collecting that data. But I know the initial set of people, it's all going to be wrong.
So you mean when we roll from TM2 to TM3, everyone's will reset as for their start date?
Yep. Because
there's no way to extrapolate that from the database from TM2 over?
I mean, there could be.
It must just be a...
Yes, for example, we could check and get the date of the first locked tile, for example.
You know, that would be a pretty good proxy for join date. That's an excellent proxy for join date.
Yeah, I concur.
Could I interrupt a moment?
Yeah, Ralph.
I would think that it was more important to have immediate to see is how many tiles or squares have been validated. If this person has had 25 squares already validated, I know that someone's already looked at their work. What I do find that gives you the information, whether the person's a beginner or what they are, is that you can open all their tiles at the same time and have a look across the section at how they're doing. That would then give me a better idea of what their standard of mapping is consistently.
Okay. All right. I mean, I agree with that the number of, we're limited in how many columns we have here. But I agree with you that how many tasks they've had validated is an important number too. That would be interesting and useful. But we have to make some choices. We're only getting a couple of options in this table. It can't take
okay, well,
page. But maybe it could next time. But this time it's not going to be able to take up much more than what we have. I'm sorry, Laura.
Right now with the level column, beginner, intermediate, advanced, or whatever the 3 are, we need to create an algorithm that helps us determine exactly what those 3 levels represent. And only once we've done that should we really use that in this section, I think, because we still haven't, we've talked about this for a long time. Yeah. What exactly constitutes a beginner and intermediate and advanced?
Less than 250 change sets in open.
Yeah, but then there's still, we could parse that down into other issues.
I know we can, right, I get that, Laura. We can parse that down into other issues. But I'm telling you what it's going to be at the moment. And at the moment, it's going to be like 250 change sets or less, 200 to 500 is intermediate, or 200 to 750 is intermediate, and then, or maybe to 1,000, and then like 1,000 and over would be advanced. And I know that's super imperfect, but that's kind of what it's going to be to start with.
We need to put a pin in this and discuss it later, so because it's not really related to what we're trying to do.
No, I mean it is. I mean it's certainly super important. Yeah.
I mean,
I just think later is going to be sometime after the initial release of the software, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. Great.
I just want to add something. There is something also that could be missing for the validation, is that sometimes the mappers want some review. They are asking for some review. So maybe it would be good to have a button somewhere when you have mapped something, you can ask for a review, and then the validators could be able to see who is asking for a review?
Yeah, that's a brilliant feature to have. I don't know that we're going to be able to do it by May 15th, but it's a very good feature to have. And maybe we can do something intermediate, but ideally it would be great if people could ask a validator to look at their work. It would form a relationship with them. You'd know that they're highly motivated because they took the time to ask. You know, it could pop up a message to all the validators or some who have just opted in. I mean, there's a lot of, it's just a really good idea. I just don't think that in that like ideal form it's going to exist, but I know the issue that you're talking about.
Okay, so we knew that we were going to be doing some work on this, and we'll catch up with you, Blake, on what your kind of decisions are on this with the sort of feedback you're getting.
Okay.
I
mean, we all agree that date since last validation, while I have the key community members here,
yep,
and who will also be watching this on video, and they can share, you know, via that way. But the only people who watch this far or are still here are interested. My big thing is days since last validated.
Yeah.
To me, if I can get Ralph and Ian, and I'm sorry, Ralph and Laura, you know, or anybody else who feels as strongly as they do, I feel like that's a pretty important piece. How long has it been since they've gotten their last validation? And some of the other columns, you know, we're going to keep level, but some of the other columns might change. But that's the one that's hard to do. And that's the one that we need to be sure that you think is probably a really valuable piece to have, so it's worth it.
Okay.
Ralph, I'm asking Ralph and Laura.
Okay.
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah, no, I think that would be useful information so that we can consistently keep a check on people's work. I mean, if they've been validated a month ago, you want to concentrate on the people who haven't yet been validated.
Yeah, exactly. And the other cool thing is you'll be able to find experienced users who have like not had a thank you in 6 months. You know what I mean? So I think it'll be a great tool. All right, we can move on. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm keen just to see what we want to do at this stage. We sort of used an hour. I'm keen. I mean, I'm happy to sort of, you know, carry on if folk are keen. I'm not sure how other people are fixed time-wise, but yeah, it's just to see how you want to what you want to do at this point, Blake.
You can do it. I know that you told me you need to be done by this time.
Yeah, I've got a bit of leeway actually today.
Okay.
So,
then what I would suggest is you break out the project management part.
Yep.
And we look at it, and you know we talk about it, but understand that we're, you know, might have to wrap this up shortly, and it's also the very newest part of this. So.
Okay, so project dashboard is basically PMs and admins can see this page. The page shows an overview of the project that this particular user has created. Currently, they're organised by active, well, they're sort of published status, active, draft, and archived. But we are, I believe, going to be looking at, I think potentially there's going to be some stuff around campaign coming in here as well. Let me just check on that one actually. But yeah, currently we have active, draft, and archived. So we can sort this table. And yeah, really this is just a place to kind of show a way in to the projects that a project manager has, you know, has on the go currently or has done in the past. So again, it's various hooks into other parts that we've seen, create a new project, filter the projects that we're seeing here, and then sort of visual kind of representation. So we can see on the map where we've been doing things, and we can link directly into those projects to see how they're getting on. So this is the project management dashboard.
Does anybody have any questions about this? I mean, I have some questions about this, but we're scheduled to talk about it anyway, so.
Linda, I don't know, Linda, if you wanted to add any comments there. I'm less familiar with this page and it is quite new and developing, so I don't know if you wanted to add any comments about the plans for this page or haven't covered.
Well, I think we're going to catch up with Blake on this, so I think we'll just have to see.
Yeah, this is just kind of a preview. We're going to have to, can I extract all the AOIs from this page? That's a good question.
Sorry?
The question is, how do I can I get all the AOIs from this page? You know, downloading the AOIs and the task squares is something that, you know, we can do now. So I guess Paul's asking like where we would do that from. Could this page be potentially a place where we could do that from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a, you know, a hook for that kind of thing. So
you could show the activity and stats.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Quickly.
So again, Blake's, you know, again, this is even newer of the press, and it is very much to be discussed. But this is currently you have a tab on the mapping page for activity and stats. So we've extracted that out into its own area. The rationale being, we've had all kinds of discussions around, you know, all kinds of stats and things that, you know, reporting on projects, you know, burn downs, when is it going to be completed, information about who's been doing what on the project, you know, all this kind of thing, comments by users. I'll just switch to back to my pre-prepared project, which has got some activity on it. So you can see here, you know, this is the activity feed. This is who's been contributing to that. Information here about what, you know, what they've been mapping, what they've been validating, and then stats on the project. You know, all the comments that have been left on this project in one place. I believe that's new. So this page is, we thought the rationale being that this, you know, you can really start to build this page up with all kinds of new things. It's a place for that, rather than it being constricted in a tab on the mapping. Now, Blake, I know we discussed this earlier, so yeah, we definitely need to discuss this. It's not set in stone, but that's the way it is at the moment.
Right. And yeah, we'll talk about it. I mean, like some of this stuff, yeah, we just have to figure out where this goes. If it's part of the project and everybody wants to look at it, I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to. Or if this might be something that only a few people want to look at, you know. And I mean, it's also like, you know, some of this stuff like number validated and things like that, you know, I mean, now some of this is a crossover. Does that also help with validation? So yeah, there's a little bit more to talk about this, but not a ton really. I mean, you know, we'd like to make it as complete as possible and have all kinds of neat stats on it. So maybe that makes it a better sense to be separate.
I have just one question here. If we go back to the project dashboard where you had the filters, you've got there for the project, you've got the name. Does that name mean just the name of the project, or that third level that we were talking about, Blake, whereby you can say all the projects under the Ebola epidemic, or all the projects under the Nepal earthquake? So does that name handle both of those levels?
So we need to go back a screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Next one back.
Project
Right
dashboard.
here, we've got the active, and you've got under name some part of the world. Now that was your project name, that specific project that you were setting up.
Yeah.
Well, what happens if you've got project 1, project 2, project 3, all for Haiti? If I put in there Haiti, how do I see all those 3 projects?
Right above, it says under filter, you can do it by the
Yeah.
name or the campaign.
Linda, can you comment there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You can just filter by text search there at the top.
So if I filter on a campaign,
Yeah, that would work, and also the name.
Yeah, so
Oh.
you would set them all up with Haiti.
Malaria is the only campaign name that I see, so try malaria. Oh yeah, you're right, your Feeney one, or yeah. But
that would be on the draft probably.
I mean, Feeney, I thought we published that one. Strange. I mean, it's also probably the issue here is that this filter field is not auto-completing with the campaign.
Okay, but that does answer my question that you can actually search by that third level.
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
All right, I don't know where my sort of last item that I had that was sort of optional for the end was take a quick look at the API, and I don't know. I know I've sort of picked up that we've got at least one.
Okay, if I can just if I can interject for 1 second.
Yep.
Paul put a question into the text chat, and he asked if he could have this same sort of this same UI, but not restricted to just projects that he created, but that all the projects in the system.
I mean, that's really what
Am I invited?
Somebody's got a lot of background noise.
Samuel does.
Okay, Samuel muted himself. Okay, great. Thanks, Samuel. I'm sorry, did you get the question, Ian?
No, sorry, can you repeat it?
Sure. The question was, is it possible that we could have basically this exact same, whatever this final turns out to look like, for all the projects instead of just projects that I've created?
Is that not really what the contribute is?
Yeah, so I've just realized we hadn't looked at the contribute page in detail. We had some discussion initially, but this is for anybody to find stuff based on level, organization, campaign, types of mapping.
But the other interface is for more of a project manager, and the results that it displays are more focused on a project manager.
My projects, basically.
Right. So the thing is, this comes back to that, like, let's put it where we need it. So being able to search through all the projects here is important. But when we're looking in our project management role at the dashboard, we may very well need to see all of the projects, not just the projects that we.
I think that would have to. I mean, that would certainly be a kind of next.
I get it. I get what you're saying. That this could be something that we could do at the moment. It's not something that we.
But not. I think not at this stage in the project.
So to start with, at least, it's probably going to be limited to your projects.
Yeah. Thanks.
I don't know. I mean, we'll talk about it and see how like I said, we're scheduled to talk about the dashboard page and
yeah, I mean, this filter, like say future.
But I understand the question is what I'm saying for Paul. I get the question exactly. And when we talk about some of the more final implementation stuff on this one, we'll talk about that and understand what's possible.
All right. Any more questions then on?
Yeah, it's related to the project page. It looks like it's not possible currently to give a link to a specific tile. So in Task Manager 2, you can add dash tile / a number, and you can go directly to this tile. Do you think it's possible to do it in Task Manager 3 as well, so that people can share a link to a tile specifically?
Anything's possible. Yeah, that's currently not there, as you've noticed. So yeah, that.
What happens when you bookmark the page that you're on if you're in an open task?
The URL doesn't change actually.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no URL bookmark to a task at the moment.
Maybe I will open an issue and maybe I will help on that point if I can.
Yeah. I mean, the way to, it's only doable. Like, there's nothing sort of technically you know, there, but it'll go on the list.
Yeah, that sounds great, Pierre. That would be amazing.
Is it useful, you think, for people? I don't know. I would use it, but I don't know if people use it actually.
I do it all the time.
Is very important to me when I'm validating. I have people who send me emails to say, this is the problem I'm having. Here is the URL of the square I am working on, and here is a screenshot. I can go immediately straight to the square that they were working on and check out the information that they're asking the question about. That is very useful to me.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I use it all the time as well. I bookmark tasks that I'm validating or working on.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
It makes it easier to go back and find it, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks very much, Pierre. It's not something that I'd noticed.
Yeah.
As everybody echoed, it is pretty well used.
Yeah.
This is why I'm here, to check if everything from Task Manager 2 is on Task Manager 3. But I'm sorry, because there is a lot of things in the version 2.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of things, and they're subtle. There's a lot of real subtle functionality in Tasking Manager 2.
Yeah, there's just little things, and it's exactly that's it. Subtle. There's lots of little things that are very subtle, but then it actually turns out that they're very important to people.
Is TM3 a build?
I would like to add that I am impressed by what the Tasking Manager 3 looks like. I'm impressed.
Well, we've had some good code to base it on.
Yeah, is TM3 a build from scratch?
It's a copy and paste, effectively. No, not a copy and paste. It's a new architecture with Python and Flask and Angular, and it's built from scratch, but with, you know, reference to the current UI and the way the workflows work, and also to the current code as well. And the data model is more or less the same. It's been changed little bits here and there to support functionality, but the data model is almost the same as it is at the moment.
Okay.
That might be a good segue into the sort of, you know, swagger. My colleague here, Ian, is kind of nudging me just to say skip it, but I think it's really, really important to highlight, even if you're not technically minded. I think this is an important area of TM3 to highlight, because this is what's going to give the TM3 the power, the platform for it to be extended in the future. These APIs. If I just show you quickly, the mapping API, it's got that. I don't know. I mean, hopefully, I'm not, you know, talking in a way, you know, losing anybody here. But basically, we've got these APIs. So let's just say you've got the project, and if you pass in the project ID, let's pass in project 3, which is the one I was working on. And if I try it out, you see here you've got this data structure. So that data structure is basically a project, and we've got the tasks in there, we've got the AOI in there, and we've got all the information about the task. We've got instructions, description, what have you. So that is just data. And so we've built a front end in Angular, a client application that's using that data and providing a view of that data. But because of this very clean separation, we can build new things in the future. We can build new clients, mobile clients. We can even build new APIs that are there purely to just give out data for reports or to drive other applications that we don't even, you know, that tasking that hot people don't even have a stake in, because these APIs are there, and because there's nothing about the view, the sort of there's no HTML in there. It's just clean data, and that's the architecture. And I think that's just worth everybody being aware of, because there's really scope here for people to build on the TM3 database now that previously might have been more difficult to implement. So that's just a comment there.
Pierre,
And so
do you have any
most of
questions about the API?
I mean, these APIs have all been built to drive the application. So a lot of them, like in the validation, you see things like lock for validation, and these are, there's authorization, and the back end is going to check who you are and whether you have the right role before it lets you do things. So clearly these are for the application, but some of the other ones, you can see, stats, these are not authenticated. So you can be building stats, a library of stats APIs. You can be building libraries of APIs that just let you get data out and into other applications.
What's the user contribution one look like? The very last one that you have open.
Yeah, so that's project ID. So let's say 3. So,
I think one of the interesting things potentially is to get involved with machine learning, because there's a lot of this data that it's kind of crying out for algorithms to identify buildings, etc. So I think by having an API here, it's opening up a future to kind of Google summer of code type projects where people can say, look, we can pull in data and start to do some machine learning on these data sets. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction.
I have visions of graduate students dancing in my mind right now, querying this API, doing beautiful work. It looks good.
So while we've had a lot of discussion and there's a lot of great ideas kicking around about the front end and what we can, some of it might not make it in to the first release, but I just think the platform for building it in the future, we've got a Flask, we've got a framework for these microservices for these APIs, we've got a testing framework in the background so that you can have confidence that as new code gets added, it's not going to break existing code. And yeah, it's solid. It's a solid platform for the future.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, like you said, right? I mean, we're building on standing on the shoulders of giants in leading the way with this tasking manager, with the tasking manager 2 and Pierre.
Yep.
I mean, like I say, I mean, that tasking manager 2 has put tens of millions of people on the map, all through the tasking manager 2. Yeah, it's a really important application, and the refresh of it, looks really good.
I have to say that without those tasking managers, our job would have been absolutely impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it just wouldn't have been possible. I mean, it just wouldn't have been possible. And does anybody else have any, final questions or comments? Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say that this separation between the server and the client using an API is a nice improvement, and I've seen most of the code, and I think this is a good base, much more than what I did with the tasking manager 2, actually, because yeah, the JavaScript part is much more clean, and yeah, it's really better than what I did.
Thanks, Pierre.
Yeah, that's appreciated. Thank you, Pierre.
And so this is intended to migrate some data from the version 2 to version 3. I know that the model changed a bit, but if you want some help migrating data, I can certainly give some hand.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be appreciated, especially things like, pulling out these contribution dates for, when did a user last contribute, etc. It's good. While we've not drastically changed the model, it has been changed enough to make it a non-trivial process. So there's going to be quite a lot of, I mean, I think we took the view that it's going to be better to create a better model going forward, even though it's going to make for a more painful migration. But that's like a one-off task. So once we've got the data migrated, then, you know, we can build on it, as everybody's been talking about.
So what's the best way to collaborate, Pierre? Slack or GitHub?
Both. I'm not on Slack that often. I'm there only when I have questions to ask. But I think I can get messages on GitHub more easily.
GitHub. Okay, great. Yeah, thanks very much for offering. I really appreciate it, Pierre. And that's the second time you offered. Thank you very much. Okay, I think with that, I'm going to wrap it up. I really appreciate everybody's time at Thinkware, and I know we went over. And I really appreciate the time from all the people who attended and all of the input. Paul, the answer to your question was, can you get the URLs? And the answer is yes. The main URL links to all of these too. So if you go to that staging site, the Elastic Beanstalk site, with the right permissions, you can get to all of this stuff. So if you want to be exploring the administrator roles and project creation, you're going to have to send me an email with your OSM user ID, and then I can make you an administrator or a project manager. Testing this because of the roles, because now it can be restricted. Testing stuff and really exploring it can consist of a lot of logging out and logging back in as a different user, so that you can really explore how the permissions work or don't work. So far they work. But it definitely makes testing a little bit more, it's not as easy as it is in Testing Manager 2, that's for sure. So send me an email and I'll make sure you're an admin if you want to look at the back end, the admin stuff. And that's same for Ralph and everybody else.
Okay, hear you there, Blake.
Okay. All right, great. So I'm going to wrap this up. And like I said, thank you very much for attending and contributing and really taking the time to look at it. And thank you at Thinkware for taking the time to go through it with us in this kind of detail. I really appreciate it.